The global hospitality sector is valued at $5 trillion, employs almost 200 million people, and benefits from a staggering 7% annual growth rate. Indeed, the hotel industry is thriving, catering to business people seeking seamless experiences, families exploring exotic destinations, and celebrities indulging in unparalleled luxury.
If you are a general manager in leadership, whether it be in Walmart or in a hotel business, that cares about the associates in a real way, you are going to have an insane company.
Imagine the possibilities as new and breathtaking locations open worldwide. Today, hospitality leaders are redefining travel, setting new standards of excellence and creating unforgettable memories for all. But how can hotels sustain growth and outdo their competition? Which trends are critical? What does every CMO need to know? What do hotel guests really want?
I'm an employee-driven person because the owner is a money-driven person and I want to make them money. And the only way to make them money is to make sure that they have the supplies they need and the care they need to do their job. And I hold them to very, 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 very high standards, and I don't take crap from anybody. So if you do that well, that's who wins.
The indomitable Anthony Melchiorri joins me to provide best-in-class knowledge surrounding all things hotel. Anthony's illustrious career boasts leadership positions with some of the world's finest five-star properties, including New York City's Plaza Hotel, the Lucerne, and the Algonquin. Anthony has been dubbed America's favorite hotel expert with several hit shows under his belt, including Hotel Turnaround, Hotel Impossible, Extreme Hotels, and now the all-new Hotel All-Stars. Anthony, you are a great friend with New York City fire passion, so naturally, it was a pleasure having you as my guest on some future day. All right, Anthony, it's great to see you. Welcome to Some Future Day.
I am really, really excited. And since the moment I met you, I was like, there's something special about this guy. So now you have a stalker.
I like it. I need a stalker, especially since you're a New York City guy. I love the fact that you are from Brooklyn, New York City. I think it's a big deal. I was really fascinated. I read that your life story actually came to life in a movie that you executive produced. It was pretty compelling. You want to talk a little bit about your background as a Brooklynite, as a real New Yorker?
Sure. I grew up in Brooklyn. My dad died when I was 2 years old, and my mom was left with 3 kids, raised them on her own. And just let's say that she was a very strong, great mother, but she had to do things to put food on the table. So years later, I grew up in Brooklyn. I went to Sheepsbury High School. I joined the military. The Air Force saved my life. Literally to this day, I see anybody in the Air Force uniform and I just give them a hug. I'm very blessed to have the Air Force bring me back for speaking engagements. And so they really saved my life from being in Brooklyn and not really having any direction. Matter of fact, I don't think I've told you this, but last year I was inducted into the United States Air Force Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Which was an insane moment for me. And I cried for about 3 hours. So as I went through my career in the hotel business, I just had to get my story, my life story, or how I grew up out of me. So I met a gentleman named Leo Rossi, who's become my best friend. And he's an actor in Hollywood. You can look him up. And anyway, by meeting him, then I met the real Donnie Brasco, Joe Pistone. And we got a movie made through Lifetime and through Stars Media called Wisegal. It's a story about kind of watching my mother do things to kind of get us over to the finish line. And, and I wanted to make sure that it was really important to me that everyone knew my dad was a good guy and that my mom did what she had to do to make a living. So when you watch the movie called Wisegal, you can find it anywhere online. It's pretty compelling to see what a mom would do to make sure her kid have food on the table.
Yeah, I think, Anthony, it's really, an incredible story. The fact that you were able to get James Caan, the amazing actor who is also in The Godfather, into your film, just speaks a ton. But what was the story that your mom went through? Like, what happened to your family, and what did she need to do to take care of you?
Well, let's just put it this way, and you have to watch the movie because I don't really talk about it outside of the movie because it's something I never talk about. And it's she was working with the local organization there that helped let's just say move money. And so in the movie it goes through a story. Alyssa Milano played my mom. James Caan played someone that she was involved with. When I was on the set with James Caan, he told so many great stories. But when I first met him, this is funny. I was like, I'm a general manager of a hotel. I don't know anything about Hollywood. I just was fortunate enough to get this movie made. I'm in Canada. James Caan's on the set that week. I fly in and I come out of my hotel room. He comes out of his hotel room. We're in the lobby of the hotel. I had no idea it was in my hotel. I have a cashmere jacket on. I have a black shirt on, kind of like what you're wearing. He has a cashmere jacket on, a black shirt. We have the same color jeans on. Because I was thinking, I worked really hard. What would a producer wear to a set? So somebody mentions that I'm the guy that the movie's about, or it's really about my mom. And he comes over to me and he touches my jacket. He looks at my outfit and he uses two words. One starts with F and the other one starts with Y. And I was like, yes, sir. And he smiles and he goes, I have 50 movies in my back pocket since I'm 9 years old. I can't get one effing movie made. You have one screenplay, and James effing Caan is playing in your movie. And I'm
It's
looking,
remarkable.
I'm terrified. I almost peed down my leg. I was so terrified. And I'm looking at him, and he smiles and he goes, "Kid, don't ever forget this moment." And I go, "Sir, I guarantee you, I will." I'm actually getting emotional talking about it. I said, "Sir, I guarantee you, I will never will." And so I was very fortunate.
Well, it's an interesting sentiment on society. Like you winked and you talk about the idea of your mom working with like the community organization. But I guess my question to you, when you think about the community and organized crime, is sometimes people just need to find a place where they can get help and take care of their loved ones. And I wonder if we're seeing that in New York City these days. Like I know Giuliani kind of got rid of the mafia, and it's not as prevalent as it was when we were growing up. But there's still organized crime in certain communities. So you might look at certain areas in New York City where people are living in the housing projects and they're relying on the drug dealers to actually give them opportunity to generate income, to help their children, to get Christmas presents. In many cases, more reliable for some reason or another than their local government. And I'm wondering if that's just a part of New York City culture, and it will always be, regardless of the groups, the communities, background, ethnicity, racial profile, or beyond.
I don't think it has anything to do with New York City in particular. I think it has to do with people wanting to be part of a group. So if you go out to the Midwest, you go out to the West, wherever you go, if you have a better deal than the deal being provided to me, whether it be working at 7-Eleven or working or going to school and somebody, saying, "Hey man, I'm the cool guy and let's go sell drugs," or whatever it is, right? In any community across people, that's why it's so important to have mentors and to have coaches because, depending on when you get influenced, it could be a pretty heavy influence. I remember when I was 9, 10, 11 years old, I was like, people could influence me. And my mom was very strong and she made sure that we kept our nose clean and that we were very, very good kids. And we went to school and we did what we had to do. But my mom took no nonsense. So she put food on the table. That's all I knew growing up. And that's all I needed to know. But my house was a normal house where a very strong woman that took no crap from nobody raised us to be good people. And so I think it really starts in the home with coaches or with, on a track team or wherever you get that support. Or if you're left to your own devices and someone kind of picks your bones, so to speak, and again, in the movie, you'll kind of see what happened after my dad died. And that's kind of what happened. But I say to people, what wouldn't you do to support your children? Right? you'd kill me and 3 people behind me to make sure your kid has food in his mouth, period. And so that's what the story is about. The story isn't about so much what she did, it's why she did it. So there's stories about that, and whether it be in the housing projects, whether it be in Beverly Hills, there's stories about those kind of women and men throughout our country. And some people, like myself, go in the military and we get straightened out pretty quick. And we realize there's only one way to be successful, and that's do the right thing and be a moral person. So I that movie was a big, big, I don't think I've ever said this publicly. I haven't said this publicly. It was my therapy. Getting that out was my therapy. And you know, my mom in a lot of ways is my hero. And I just wanted to show in a light. And she was involved in it. She actually, I didn't know a lot of that stuff. And she actually sat with the writer and helped her write the movie.
So you had a personal catharsis of sorts when you talk about it being your therapy. When the movie was finished, what happened to you personally? What finished? What was resolved in your life personally?
Wow, you're good, man. I've never gone anywhere like this with anyone. Um, I will tell you that um, I'm not a violent person at all, but I was an angry person, and I was a hell of a lot less angry, and I was very I felt good. I just felt like my dad was a good man. In the movie, he was a police officer, but he was a construction worker, and my mom was a smart lady uh, who basically whose life was turned upside down. She had a not a great upbringing herself. So when she finally had a stable life with 3 beautiful kids living in a, you know, in a townhouse on the second floor in Sheepshead, but we're in Bay Ridge. And then, you know, making pasta and raising her family, and her husband coming home and making good money back in the day. Matter of fact, if you ever see the parachute ride in Coney Island, think of my dad because he painted that back in the day. And he was a construction worker making good money at the time, and everything was fine. And then he dropped dead of cancer. And everything got turned upside down and backwards. And she had no support system. Her mom was my grandmother was a great lady, but she had nothing and she had no support. So again, some people show up in a time in your life that's vulnerable. And sometimes you walk through the door and sometimes you don't.
So anyone who knows me knows I have a tremendous amount of respect for the military. I think that your background as it relates to the United States Air Force is super incredible. I didn't realize that you received such an amazing award, Anthony. What were you doing in the Air Force? What was your role while you were in the Air Force?
Okay, so when I took the test here at Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, I say here, I'm not in Brooklyn, but in Brooklyn, um, uh, you take a test. You can be, you know, it was things about mechanics, electrical, whatever, and then there was administration. And I aced the administration part without realizing I got the highest mark you can get. And thank God, because the other two, I got the lowest mark you can get, basically. I put my name on the paper. And so I became an administrator. And basically, I worked my way up. I went to Whiteman Air Force Base, which was a nuclear base. We had 150 intercontinental missiles, and I worked my way up and in administration, and then won Airman of the Year and won all awards. Went to college, started getting my degree, and Colonel Kenny, who eventually became a general, tapped me to become his protocol officer. So I was a protocol officer, which means I made sure anything he needed, I took care of, whether it be driving, whether it be if a general comes on base, make sure the rooms are ready, whatever it was, I was his person. Make sure the flags are in the right place. I remember going to Fort Leavenworth for a flag we didn't have that we needed for a dignitary. And then when I was on base, we were very fortunate because it was an old Army base, World War II base. We got the only, to this day, the only stealth bomber base in the world went to Whiteman Air Force Base because Ike Skelton, who was a senator, he made sure we got it. They put in $1 billion worth of renovations to our base. We had the best shower, best dorm, and I worked for the colonel who was in charge of bringing the stealth bomber to Whiteman Air Force Base. So through
nuclear weapons and stealth bombers. That's pretty amazing.
And I went. It was a kid that didn't know which way I was going. And I'll tell you another story. You listen. You open up a can of worms, my friend. I was there the day the 4-star general. It was when the wall came down, and it was a 4-star general from Russia. The only time in our history to this day that a Russian general was in a nuclear silo. It was me, Colonel Kenning, the 4-star general, General Welch of the United States Air Force, a 4-star general from Russia, and 2 or 3 other protocol officers from their side in this silo, in where we launch nuclear weapons. And then all of a sudden, I'm the kid that gets a stealth bomber model on his desk with a box of 50 stealth bomber models that I had to give out to vice presidents, presidents, generals, dignitaries, because everybody came to the base. So that was my intro. I'm a very serious person, even though I try to keep it light. Into piss poor preparation leads to piss poor performance, and I was trained on there's no second chances. This is serious stuff. So even though I wasn't, turning screws for a nuclear weapon or launching nuclear weapons or flying the stealth bomber, I was treated as whatever you did, do it right the first time. So
Well, you were a cog. You were a cog in that team. You were still playing a major role. And what? So I don't understand. Just going back to like the missile silo thing. So you were in a nuclear missile silo with a leader from Russia.
Yeah. So and you can look it up. And there's a whole big. I went back. I was honored by my university, Park University, and I was sat on the board. So I would go out there, and their base asked me to come by. So I went by, and I go to the decommissioned nuclear silo, and there's a big plaque of this day. And the gentleman who's now passed away, I was there about 5-6 years ago. He said this was a really big day in the history of Whiteman Air Force Base, and I'd make believe I have no idea what he's talking about. And he's going through, he goes, the only time a Russian general, blah, blah, blah. I wish I was there. It was a historic day for our country. And I look at him, and I'm in my honor guard uniform in this picture with my little silver hat on, and I'm in charge of the honor guard, and I have my gun. And I go, look at that guy right there. And he's looking, and I go, look familiar? And he's like, no. And I go, look a little closer. And he looks and he goes, is that you? I go, yeah, that's me.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it was one of those moments. Listen, I was very fortunate. But how it works is you have 150 nuclear missiles, which after Gorbachev and Reagan signed the deal, those got decommissioned. So, but when I was there, they were ready to launch. So there's 150 missiles throughout.
What's it like inside? Like when you say when you were there, they were ready. They weren't decommissioned. Like, what does it feel like inside a nuclear missile silo? What's the ambiance?
I see you. I will show you the video. There's 150 missiles throughout. There's launch pads all over. There's silos all over Missouri. But then I think there's 15 nuclear launch facilities that are throughout Missouri. They're not on site necessarily of that weapon. So I may be I may have a launch site, and I may have a missile site in the same site that launches that missile and 10 other missiles throughout Missouri. So each launch site has 15 missiles, right? Sometimes they're at one site, and sometimes they're just in the middle of a cornfield. So you go down to the site where you launch the missile, you go through this tunnel, and I can't remember if it's 60 feet below ground, and you go through, and there's a, think of a bank vault, like when you walk in the bank, that thick door. Well, times that by 2 or 3, okay? They close 2 pilots in the launch area, and they seal it for 24 hours. Can't get in, can't get out. Each one of those, this is all declassified, by the way. Each one of those people have guns. Why do they have guns, Mark?
I have no idea. This is so above my pay grade.
You can't get in, you can't get out, but you and I are sitting there. We can't, like, when we turn the keys, we can't be, you and I can't turn the keys. Like, I can't turn both keys. It's so far away that we have to turn them at the same time. Why do we have weapons?
Talk to me. Tell me.
Because if you lose your mind, I have to shoot you.
That's crazy.
And you can go online. It's all online. And
That's
So
wild.
these two people, these we call them missile pilots. I'll tell you a funny story. I used to go to the bar, me and my best friend who's now passed away, and we were young. And so if a young lady asked what we did in the Air Force, she said we were missile pilots. She's like, what's a missile pilot? So how do you think those missiles get to Russia? We get on the missile and then we parachute off. And of course, that's not true. But so I was a missile pilot when I was
But
at the
she
bar.
believed you.
Some of them did.
I bet you. Yeah, I bet you.
So I go from this kid that grew up in Brooklyn that in my book, Show Up, it talks about I was 18, wanting to jump off a roof. And then all of a sudden, I'm kind of hanging out with a Russian general, and I have to make sure that the colonel runs on time for a nuclear base and a stealth base. It was bananas. But I never thought of it really being bananas until I'm speaking to you because it just, the only thing that sharpens a diamond or iron sharpens iron. It's like you early on in your, at least for me as a young man, I needed to be around the best in the world. And to this day, I have not met any leaders outside. I've met some good leaders outside, but I've not met anyone that comes close to the people I work for in the military. Not one person.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear you say that. As far as military leaders being the best, I assume that's the most organized and beyond. And in your specialty in the hospitality category, you went on quickly after you left the military and went into the hospitality space. You went on a bit of a meteoric rise. I mean, your lineup of achievements and accomplishments are incredible. The Plaza Hotel, the Lucerne, the Algonquin, and the innovation that you brought into those areas too. So it wasn't just about like organizational standards that you might have brought from the military experience, but also creativity. Like, for example, the Plaza, the iconic Plaza. You're the person that created the Eloise tour.
Okay, so the Eloise tour was actually
I'm moving you from nuclear missiles and stealth bombers to Eloise.
Well, Eloise was obviously the thing way before me, but Eloise is at the Plaza, and Randy Glick was the VIP manager. A young lady comes into the lobby of 59th Street, and she's dressed in a little beautiful outfit, and I'm in my tuxedo at the time because when I was there in the beginning, we were in tuxedos as the manager, and she put her hand out. It's in my book. She put her hand out, and she goes, "Mister, where's Eloise?" Like a shotgun in my chest. I was like, "I don't know." So I run into the VIP office, and I go, "Randy, do we have a tour or something? Like this little girl wants to see Eloise." And she goes, "We'll make one." So she brings her around, she makes this tour. And then I went to Tom Civitano, who's the chief marketing officer, and he's actually in Home Alone 2 because he brought Home Alone 2 to the Plaza. And he said, let's now generate revenue from it. So we made a tour, we generated revenue, and it became revolutionary. And then we did this whole package for Home Alone 2, which actually blew up. And you don't know this, but at the end of Home Alone 2, Tom Civitano thought it was a good idea to put our phone number at the end of Home Alone 2. So on a Sunday morning, and at this time I was director of front office operations, we would get thousands, tens of thousands of calls that would break our phone lines to kids making believe they're, the Home Alone 2 kid, right? It was fascinating. So I go from the Air Force, and then all of a sudden I'm Home Alone 2 set. All of a sudden I went.
So it's kind of interesting because at the time the Plaza was really the most iconic New York City hotel, hands down. Who owned the hotel back then that they were bringing in movies and you were launching the Eloise tour?
Wait, do you know the answer to this question?
I don't. I really don't.
Your mind's gonna be blown, my friend.
Go ahead.
Okay. Now this is back in 1991. Okay. And at the end of Home Alone 2, have you ever watched Home Alone 2?
Of course. Of
At
course.
the end of Home Alone 2, and what's his name? The McAllister, the kid's name in the movie.
Macaulay Culkin.
Macaulay Culkin says to a gentleman standing in the lobby, "Hey, mister, where's the front desk?" Who did he say, "Hey, mister, where's the front desk" to?
Trump. But was Trump the owner back then?
The building. And the only reason Home Alone 2 was shot there is because Trump wanted to be in the movie.
So he owned the building or the business.
He owned the go online and read the New York Times article about him owning the Plaza Hotel back in the day. He owned the Plaza. So when I was at the Plaza, I worked for Donald Trump, and he would call me Tony.
How did you like working for him?
He was fine to me. You know, I'm not going to get into politics or where we are today, but when I was a young manager, he would say hello to me. He would ask me what the average rate is, and I had nothing to add outside of, I worked for a gentleman who was the managing director, Barry Cregan, and so my only FaceTime with Trump was when he came into the lobby to go to the Oak Room, would ask me the average rate, and from time to time ask me another question. That was really the only interaction we had.
That's pretty cool. That's amazing. So, all right, let's move off of the Plaza and talk about the Lucerne, because something that you accomplished there is really notable, particularly in these days. You won the New York Times Best Service Award while you were at the Lucerne. Um, what did that mean for that hotel? Like, what does it mean, generally speaking, and how important was it for the Lucerne at that time?
Well, you're doing something that no one's ever done for to my career or to me. Like you're taking, and in my book, there's parts of this, but you're taking a very early part of my life and making me realize that I'm going from Brooklyn to nuclear weapons to Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone 2, and then now I'm at the Lucerne. So let's go back just for a second at the Air Force. I was given confidence. I had no confidence. I was going to kill myself when I was 18. I was going to throw myself off a building. And then I go in the military, and all of a sudden, the military gives me confidence. So I walk into the Lucerne Hotel. The Dome family who owned it, wonderful people. They bought it. It was Columbia University dorms, renovated it, gave me a jewel. No one wanted me to be GM. In my book, I told the headhunter, I will give you the commission, and I didn't have 15 cents, let alone 15 grand to give him a commission if I don't get the GM job. I went in, Ron Dome gave me the GM job. I didn't have to give the guy the commission. That's in the book too. So anyway, so when I get there, again, learning in the military, being the best is the only thing that you should be getting up in the morning for. We're America, we have to be the best. And so in the military, it's like, I got that in my brain. So I'd make a mission statement, first GM job, and on the mission statement, at the bottom of the mission statement said, we will be the number one hotel in New York City for service. So I brought it to the owner, and the owner giggled. And then I brought it to my team, and the team giggled. And that really motivated me. And a couple of years later, we were the number one, before the internet, number one New York Times hotel for service in New York City. And that is the only way to build a team. Where are we going? So in the military, we knew where we were going. We were being a deterrent for the world. It's like, you mess with us, we're going to talk to you, but if talking doesn't work, we got stuff. So in the hotel business, I needed a mission. And so that was the mission. And recently, I'm working with this company, and I said to the owner, I said, well, we will be the number one so-and-so company in the world. And he giggled. This was just maybe a week ago. And he giggled. And I was like, yes. And he goes, why'd you say yes? I said, because you just got me going. Because now you evened out it. So to me, when we became the number one in service, I still have people talking about that. Kids that were kids then, full-grown adults with careers, say to me, that moment changed everything for me because we did something nobody thought we could do.
Is the best service standard in hospitality today higher than it was back then?
Not even close. Not even
You
close.
think the service? You think the service, the standard of best service has diminished over time?
Okay, when you say best service, are you talking about best service at the Four Seasons Maui, or are you talking about best service as a comment for service today in the world?
I'm saying what? Well, let's back up. What from? If you were going to instruct the next generation of people entering the hospitality business, what is the definition of excellent service?
Be available, mentally and physically available.
Okay.
So
So if that's the standard, right? And when you were at the Lucerne and you were awarded the New York Times Best Service Award, do you feel like that level of being available back then is the same level as it is today in hotels, generally speaking?
the answer is in some hotels, in the higher end hotels, yes. where you used to get great service, and you still get great service in some 3 and 4 star hotels, obviously. This is the problem, and this is something I work with every day, and I do a show called Hotel All Stars, and in my show, the first episode you can watch on YouTube, um, out of 6 candidates, 4 showed up late. That wouldn't have happened, like, when I first came in the career. You'd have one maybe person show up late, and maybe because the subway got stuck. So, it's not so much the standard has lowered, is that people aren't taking hospitality as a career. When I came into the industry, you didn't really take it as a career, and then it started to become a career, and now because of low wages and maybe people not being treated the way they should have been, people said, "You know what? I'm not gonna stay in this industry." Now, after COVID, there are no low wages. You know, desk agents are making a really good wages, especially in New York, and they now have the power, whereas they didn't have the power because we have flexibility. So if you're not taking and meeting employees where they are, so I'm hopeful, but my job in this industry is to get people to look at this industry. So whether it be talking to students in colleges, whether it be doing my branding course at Cornell, whether it be doing my new show, Hotel All Stars, writing a book, working with companies in consulting with hotels, which I do on a daily basis. My job, I was talking to a young man yesterday, actually not a young man, and he said to me, because there was a story he heard and whatever, I was telling him about it, and he said, "I've never met in my entire career anybody that loves this business more than you do." Like, and you probably never will. So it's not there. The infusion of that level of wanting, we are servant leaders. You come into my hotel, I'm the only thing I am to you is a servant leader. I'm there. Just you at 3 o'clock in the morning want your shoe shined, and there's nobody on duty, and I get a call saying, "Hey, Mark needs a shoe shine." I get my car and go shine your shoes.
So, Anthony, though, shouldn't that culturally then, if it starts at the top, right? If executive management and ownership has that culture of excellence with regards to service, it's 3 in the morning, I got you. Shouldn't that trickle down then to the employee level at every level?
It does if there's a culture of, if you have a line employee and you say, well, that line employee should just work harder. Well, are they incentivized? Yes, they're making a decent wage. And yes, maybe they have health benefits. And yes, they maybe even have a good work environment. But everybody wants to grow. Showing that person how they're going to grow and why they should stay. I just had this example at a hotel I was at in Boston recently. And I asked a young lady, I said, "Are you in the hospitality school?" And she said, "No," as I was checking out. And I go, "Oh," and she was okay. She wasn't great. And she goes, "But I want to be a supervisor." And then she got excited. So if we don't make sure we're mentoring her, we're going to lose her in the industry. So I'm going to make a personal point to try to talk to that young lady and mentor her. So it comes down to, like anything else, who are you surrounding yourself with? So if you are a general manager that sucks, your team's going to suck. You are a general manager that understands the housekeeper is the most important person in the building. It's not the owner. And you inspire that housekeeper, you inspire that front desk clerk. They want to work for you and around you, not because you're paying them, not because you're nice, just because they're inspired by you. Because in my career, the first word that people, I think, is what I hear when they say, "Tell me about Anthony." Nice guy is not the first thing that comes up. The first thing that comes up is he gets stuff done. And then maybe the third word is like, and he's a nice guy. But I don't get paid to be a nice guy. I get paid to get crap done. So if you are a general manager in leadership, whether it be in Walmart or in the hotel business, that cares about the associates in a real way, you are going to have a insane company.
So which hotel, if you were going to name one hotel as the North Star as it relates to exceptional service in the United States, just one hotel, where would you say the best service is?
I can't say that because depending on what it is, there's 3 star hotels that you pay $300 a night for that have that kind of service. There are, and then you go to the 5 star hotels, and there's some that are great and some that suck. But typically, if you go to a branded 5-star hotel, you're going to get good service. Sometimes you go to that branded 5-star hotel
So give
in
me one name. You don't want to name it.
um I don't. Well, okay,
All right, that's fair.
I'll name it. I'll name it because if I don't, you're gonna. I don't want you to be disappointed. Dude, I'll tell you from a personal experience. I was shooting a show called 5-Star Secrets in Cabo, and I was at the one and only. And as soon as I walk in, I get out of this car. My crew is already there. There's 2 cameras up. My producers are at the front door. And all of a sudden, I walk in, and I've never been there before. And everybody's going like this. The staff is going like this. And I'm like, I said to my producer, what the hell is this? I'm getting nervous now. And they go, just go with it, go with it. So I find out that every employee touches their heart when you pass them. And I asked the managing director, what is that? And he goes, from the heart. We give you service from the heart. Mark,
That's
I am
nice.
telling you, that changed me.
That's
I
nice.
got changed in that hotel. Have you ever been to that hotel?
I have not.
It changed me.
I have
So
not.
that level of service was, and then they put me in, because we're shooting the show, they put me in this presidential suite or whatever it was. I thought I was in the lobby. I was in my living room. I thought I was in the lobby of the hotel, in my living room.
So, okay. So, like, you're a very interesting person because we talked about marketing activation at the Plaza. We talk about attention to detail and a high level of service over at Lucerne, organizational service at Lucerne. Let's talk about the Algonquin for a second. Another important, amazing piece of New York City history. This is a marketing play, also, in my opinion. I mean, you went through a major renovation there. You reinvented the brand, and part of that reinvention was your iconic $10,000 martini. Who drinks a $10,000 martini, Anthony?
You have listen. I'm a storyteller. This is the story of my career because this is the story where people that had money in New York City that wanted hotels turned around kind of started to know who I was. But this was the moment where everybody realized the difference between marketing and PR. And I didn't know the difference until this moment. So I get to be the general manager of Algonquin. It was a blessing. And the owner said, don't ask for forgiveness. Don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. And I turned to him and I go, you just said that to the wrong guy. And he goes, no, I just said that to the right guy. I said, okay. So the ownership, and there's a lot of stories about this renovation, but I'll just cut to the chase. They gave us $3 million to renovate, soft good renovation. That means wallpaper, carpeting, furniture. $3 million for a 174-room hotel is not a lot of money, even back 20 years ago, wherever long it was. We closed the building, and that's his story. We opened it up. It's the only time the Algonquin's been closed. We opened up in 28 days. That's a miracle. New York Times writes, New York, the only thing that ran on time, whatever month it was and whatever year it was, say June 1999, whatever it was the Algonquin renovation, 28 days, right? So with this, I'm working with a PR company, and Carla Cacavalli was from this marketing company, PR company. I said I need a big idea, and so we came up with ideas, and I didn't like any of them. So one day, I won't tell you all the gory details, but one day I was done, and she's like, "Wait," because I was being very direct in the meeting, and she goes, "I don't work this way." She goes to the bathroom downstairs at the Algonquin. She comes up, she looks at the frame where she's between the blue room, the blue bar, and the lobby bar of the Algonquin. So when you walk in the Algonquin, there's 2 buildings. There's a carriage house and there's the Algonquin. The carriage house is part of the Algonquin, but they're 2 separate buildings and there's a door between them. She's in this door and she looks at me. She goes, "You do a lot of engagements here." And I said, "Yes, we do." And she says, "And you're known for the martini?" I said, "Yes, we are." And she goes, "How about the $1,000 martini?" I told the entire team, I said, "Tell me what it is." She goes, "We get a jeweler, we put a diamond in the martini, we put it on the menu, and somebody comes in, orders it, and asks somebody to marry them." I tell everybody to sit down. I tell her to stand up. And I say, everybody give her a standing ovation. Or actually, the other way around. And we gave her a standing ovation. And she goes, "What's that for?" I said, "You just nailed it. So we are going to be in front page of every paper." She goes, "Whatever." Call the owner. I go, "Mr. Miller, I'm going to need some money because blah, 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 blah." And he said, "I like it, but not the $1,000 martini, the $10,000 martini." I said, yes, sir. Front page, David Letterman wore a hat that said, what do you get at the Oak Rooms, the Blue Bars, $10,000 martini? What do you get? You get a martini and a hat that says dumbass on it, right? So we wore a hat. David Letterman wore a hat that said dumbass about our martini. And what happens is the $10,000 martini is you order it through the hotel before you ask the person you want to marry you to marry you. I'm going to get to the point of this whole story. So we get with a jeweler in Rockefeller Center. Now it could be a $5,000 diamond, a $10,000 diamond, or $1 million diamond. And they buy the diamond. They set the diamond set. We take it. We put it in our safe. We make an appointment. He comes in or she comes in. The one that we sold, he comes in. He ordered the martini. She ordered whatever drink. She thinks she's going to a Broadway play. I had the Daily News photographer next to me. Nobody knew. And anyway, this is after it already blew up, after the PR release, but this was the only time we sold it. And he got on his knee, place blew up, the Daily News next day. The point of this, I didn't come up with the idea. I didn't make the idea better. I didn't have the $3 million to renovate the Algonquin. My job was the 4-star general job. I don't fly planes. I don't fly missiles. I make sure there are no mistakes, and I make sure nobody gets in your way when you're flying that plane. I will kill everybody in my wake if we are flying the Algonquin plane and anybody gets in the way of us being the #1 hotel in New York City. That's my job.
But it seems to me, Anthony, like in every instance here, your focus is on the individual, the guest, right? Whether it was the Eloise tour, whether it was the best service at the Lucerne, even this enjoyable experience, you entered the experience with a marketing idea with regards to the $10,000 martini, but you come out of it with making these people's lives fantastic. So you're very focused on the guest, and I want to like move into an area. I want to modernize. I want to bring us up to speed in 2024 and talk a little bit about the guest as it relates to technology today. So let's shift gears and move over. Like, do you think that technology really improves a guest's experience in a hotel these days?
The answer is yes. And I'm doing the keynote speaking engagement of High Tech, which is the technology show in Charlotte in July for my industry with my partner, Glenn. And we are actually bringing everybody through technology in the hospitality industry in the last 100 years. Okay, so the short statement to that is the industry comes to technology late. When we come to technology, we implement it incorrectly. And we implement the wrong technology in a lot of instances in the wrong places. And then we spend 20 years re-engaging and trying to fix it because we just spent all this money. However, from time to time, we get it right. Electronic door locks. We got that right pretty quick. Okay, once it started to be a thing. Air conditioning, right? The bed, the big technology in our industry 25 years ago by Barry Sternlicht when he ran the Western brand was the bed. It's the bed, stupid, the heavenly bed. You remember the heavenly bed? It's the bed. Stupid. Great technology. That's technology, yeah. And now all of a sudden we all followed suit. Now you haven't slept on the bad bed in a hotel since he introduced it. So it's necessary. Guests want it, implement it. We don't do a good job of that, typically. But sometimes we do. So right now we're doing a good job with text messaging. I think Hilton, if I'm not mistaken, was the first to really implement check in on your phone, text messaging. It works. I've used it. It works most of the time. So to me, for me personally, the thing that works the best is text messaging. When I was talking to my friends at Forbes about their standards, they said, we'll never do text messaging. COVID comes, now 5-star standard is text messaging. A guest wants what they want when they want it. When you walk into a room, I don't necessarily want to be called on the phone because I may be in the toilet, but I do want a text saying, hey, welcome. Do you need anything? I'm Larry. Hey, Larry, I need 3 towels.
So it's really, you're saying technology can enhance the guest's experience in a hotel by making it a little bit more seamless for utility purposes, frictionless. I don't want to speak to a person at the front desk, but I want some service. That's really where you see technology shining.
Yes. When the employee's in front of me, I want that service to be impeccable. However, I want to choose when I want to see that person. So if I go to the front desk and I choose to go to the front desk, if I see a housekeeper and I choose to engage, but most guests want what they want when they want it. So if they want a towel, everybody has this phone less than 3 feet away from them, right? Arm's length. And I want to be able to go, and I think working with me, I'm a text guy. Like you text me, great. Email may take me a week, but text me and I'll get it done. So yes, the answer is guess what they want when they want it. However, you've got to make it easy for the employee and easy for the hotel to implement it, and it's got to be friction free, to use your words.
So let me ask you this. With regards to technology, have you seen it ruin a guest's experience? Have you seen it frustrate them to the point where, even if the physical hotel and the employees are excellent, the technology was such a disaster that it actually ruined the guest's experience?
Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever walked into a nice hotel and used an iPad that didn't work?
I have, actually, yes.
There's your answer.
Yes.
So the answer is I've had many times where I went for an iPad across the room because it doesn't work.
Right. Okay, so going back to like name dropping now, which hotel chain, let's say, generally speaking, it doesn't have to be the only one, but who's doing it right as it relates to technology? Like which chains are so ahead of the curve that the technology that they're offering enhances the guest experience? It's seamless, it's easy to use. Who's doing it fantastic? Who's the North Star hotel for technology?
Well, I have two answers, but I'll just give you my personal travel answer as a businessman who travels. I'm fortunate enough to speak in Vegas a lot. So I go to the Wynn sometimes, and my friend Brian, who runs it, great guy, and I stay there from time to time. And you grab the iPad from wherever it is, the docking station. It feels substantial. It's in a case. It works every time for room service, for the drapes, for everything. You put it back in its docking station. You have 2 or 3 around the room. It works every time. It's seamless every time. But when I deal with an employee, their level of service is at the highest level.
So Steve Wynn is winning.
Well, Steve Wynn's no longer involved with Wynn, but I would say Brian and his team are winning, yes.
Okay. All right. So that being said, which core tenets of like hospitality will stand the test of time even beyond technology? Like where's like there's this friction, right? Like this innate friction between, hospitality, people, service, etc., versus how technology can move that experience forward. But regardless of technology, if you could name like 1 or 2 core tenets of building an incredible hotel chain, what would they be?
I'll say it 2 ways. One, I'll use one word. It's called urgency. If someone is going to a formal affair, man or woman, and the blow dryer doesn't work, and they just got out of the shower, and they call you down, how long does it take to get that blow dryer to that person before their hair is out of control and they ruin their event? 3 minutes. So the sense of urgency for every guest request has got to be urgent, number one. Number two, if the owner of the hotel and the housekeeper, I don't care if the owner lives in Maui and the housekeeper lives in New York City, if they're aligned for the vision of that property, the guest is going to win because the owner cares about that line level employee. They feel it. And when that blow dryer needs to get up to the guest room in 3 minutes, that's important. And the only difference between a $200 room and a $2,000 room is amenities and size of room. The one thing that should not ever get in the way of the guest is service. So I can train a 2-star, 3-star hotel employee at the same level as I train a 5-star employee. I talk about in the book where it's when you're born a 5-star baby. Even if you're born with disabilities, you're born a 5-star baby, right? There are no mistakes. You choose as you grow up. If you work in a gas station and people are running that gas station and the bathroom is perfectly clean, you learn standards. If you work in a 5-star hotel and that bathroom is disgusting, you learn low standards. So the one thing we can control is how we train and maintain our level of care for our employees. And those employees will care about the guests. So you said I'm a guest driven person. I'm an employee driven person because the owner is a money driven person and I want to make them money. And the only way to make them money is to make sure that they have the supplies they need and the care they need to do their job. And I hold them to very, 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 very high standards. And I don't take crap from anybody. So if you do that well, that's who wins.
Okay. So I love that. I think that philosophy is incredible. Let's talk about let me ask you one more question with regards to name dropping, and then we're going to move on into like a fun exercise. Who do you think the most innovative hotelier has been in history?
It's easy to say Ritz. Ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen has been something that's run through the line of our industry, and now is in other businesses. Amazon actually built their business on that model, and as I remember, worked with them to build the model of service. So I would say you have to look at them, but then there's guys that you've never heard of, like a Jerry Inzarello, or just on and on and on and on and on the list. But I would say if you had
Jerry, I think I've had lunch with Jerry. Didn't he start One and Only?
you know Jerry Inzarello?
I do. I do.
Oh,
I was introduced to him years ago. Yeah, yeah.
we got
But
to talk.
didn't he start the One and Only in Dubai?
He helped develop that Atlantis. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's the man.
incredible.
He's the
Yeah.
man.
So let's give it to Jerry.
You know him. Most people outside the business don't know him.
Yeah, I know Jerry. He's amazing. Sorry. So let's give that award to Jerry. And now I want to take you to the next phase of your life quickly, which is amazing television personality. I mean, you mentioned Hotel All Stars now. You had Extreme Hotels, Travel Channel with Hotel Impossible, Hotel Turnaround. And what I think people love about these shows, Anthony, is that it allows for your personality to flourish, specifically as it relates to problem, solution. There might be a big problem. It could be family related. It could be the guts of a hotel. It could be, as you said earlier, the soft part of it, the furnishings, etc. But you come in like the white knight. You come in on your white horse and you solve these problems. So I want to throw some historically notable problems at you, and I want to hear how you would resolve them.
Just not the problems of Rome. As long as I don't have to fix that problem.
You ready to fire away? All right, I call this exercise hotel horror. And sometimes things just can't help but be wrong. So let's start first with regards to what would you do to repair a damaged image of a hotel or the damaged perception of a hotel? And I want to go all the way back in time to a downtown Los Angeles hotel named the Cecil, which was built in 1927, Anthony, and it's known for murder. It has inspired the American Horror Story plus 2 documentary. There were 16 murders at the Cecil Hotel and a slew of suicides. In fact, it had 2 serial killers stay there. First, the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, where in the middle of his killing sprees, which were arguably the deadliest in history, he would stay there. It was reported that he would return to the Cecil Hotel after a killing. He would leave his blood-soaked clothing in dumpsters behind the hotel and then walk into the hotel naked or in his underwear, and the hotel staff didn't care at all. And then later on, years later, in 1991, there was the Australian Strangler, Jack, I think his name is Jack Unterweger, who was the second serial killer that checked into the Cecil Hotel. And these tragedies were even dwarfed to a certain extent with something else that happened there in 2013. Elisa Lam, her body was found naked and decomposing in the hotel's water tank. Can you imagine? I mean, this is downtown Los Angeles. All of this happened at the Cecil Hotel. What would you do if you were challenged with resuscitating the image of the Cecil Hotel?
Okay, the first thing is I would take the story and I would hire someone like you who just said it so beautifully and like just so articulate, and I would tell the story. And then I would make it we talk about, are there ghosts here? Or is there a haunted part of this, are the souls in this building. After I made sure that the alignment of the hotel was to be a nice hotel, good air conditioning, good services, is it going to be a quality hotel? So if the answer is going to be a quality hotel, that's easy, right? We get that done. So now how do you market it? You literally level into that and you tell the story in a very palpable way, in a way that people can take it in. Now, if you look at Travel Channel is no longer travel shows. It's about mystery. Zach Baggis and his guys, and they're famous because they tell mysteries of not only hotels, but of all kinds of mysteries and ghosts, right? So I would lean into the ghost part of it. I actually did a show called Extreme Hotels where I stayed in the scariest room apparently in the world, which is in Scotland. I stayed in the blue room with the blue boy. I went to sleep. I don't know
What's
if
the blue boy? What's the blue boy?
he was a blue boy that apparently was uh, pushed into a wall alive, basically, and he lived in this wall, and then he eventually died as an older man. He lived in the wall. They fed him through the wall.
That's
Something
so
like
creepy.
that. Exactly. But my crew left and left me in the room with GoPros, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm scared." But I was so tired, I fell asleep. Woke up, no blue boy. But my point being is, there was a story. The story of that hotel is the number one scariest hotel in the world. That's marketing. Whether that blue boy existed or not, they really pushed into that ghost story and they marketed around the world. So I would market the ghost story. Some people really, I listen, do I believe in ghosts? No. Do I believe I've seen a ghost? Yes, I have. I truly believe I've seen my father a couple of times. So people are going to believe what they believe. So that's what I would do. I wouldn't shy away from it.
Anthony, have you been to the famous Stanley Hotel in Colorado, famous from Stephen King's movie, The Shining?
I haven't, but again, not to reference my show, but I did a show close to there, and was that the movie with the little three-wheeler in the lobby in the hallway?
Correct. Yeah, with the boy.
Yeah, I reenacted.
It's actually a true story. Like Stephen King went there with his family in the dead of winter and was inspired to write The Shining because of the experience he had there. It was like the hotel, it's a luxury hotel in Colorado. It's in Estes Park, Colorado. Stephen King goes in and it was like basically empty, but the bones of the building were luxurious and they had a band that was still playing in the ballroom live, even though there were no guests at that time because it was so snowy out and cold, and that's what inspired him to create The Shining. But it's today because it's kind of funny. The movie put a spotlight on the property, and today it's considered one of the most haunted hotels in North America. It's pretty wild.
So if I could just kind of stop you there, and you just summed it up. Guess what they want when they want it. So guests want spooky hotels and they're willing to pay for it. But the people that don't want spooky hotels and don't buy into it want nice hotels. So you can do both. You can have the spooky and you can have a nice hotel and people will come. So yeah, we reenacted those scenes throughout one of my shows.
That's pretty cool. So it's pretty wild, actually. Staying on the Stanley Hotel for a minute, Jim Carrey went there knowing I think it was he was shooting Dumb and Dumber. He went there knowing that the hotel was haunted and there were these allegations of hauntings. And apparently, he couldn't get through the whole night. He ran down. And a staff member said that basically in the middle of the night, he came down to the front desk and demanded to be moved to another room, saying something had happened and he did not feel safe in the room. But they were never able to uncover what actually happened. And he left that night. He never even stayed through the night.
What's the most powerful machine in the world? It's the human mind. So you go in with a preconceived notion of this is a scary hotel, and you're maybe falling asleep and you're already in a different state, and things happen, or it really happened. I went to this haunted hotel. My team wouldn't stay there. I stayed there because I said to myself, I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. I'm not thinking about the blue boy. I went to sleep. I woke up, no blue boy. If I went saying, I wonder if the blue boy's here, I'm going to sleep with that in my mind. And I may wake up in the middle of a dream thinking it really happened.
Right. So does the technology, like this ghost finding technology in hotels, does that really work, or is that all nonsense?
As someone once said to me, no comment.
Okay. Let's go on problem solution. Let's talk about celebrity marketing and the famous Hotel Chelsea. They've had incredible guests, as you know, from Jimi Hendrix and Bob Marley to Janis Joplin, Patti Smith, Stanley Kubrick, Dennis Hopper. But they also had, I didn't know this in doing my research, I thought it was really compelling. The Chelsea Hotel here in New York City provided lodging for the Titanic survivors that had second class tickets for a few days after that disaster, obviously. But they also had some famous deaths. Dylan Thomas died there in 1953 of alcohol poisoning, and Nancy Spungen, I think is her name. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce Nancy. Is famous from Sid and Nancy, Sid Vicious of the Sex Pistols. She was stabbed to death there. So at what point, and I guess you could like do the same thing with Chateau Marmont and John Belushi's drug overdose, right? Like at what point is celebrity marketing bad for a hotel? What would you do as it relates to celebrity marketing?
Well, Whitney Houston died in the bathtub of Beverly Hills, the Beverly Hills Hotel. John Belushi, at Hotel Montmartre. That's not the marketing you want. You don't use that marketing. That's the third rail of marketing. The hotel in Vegas where there was this mass murderer. You don't use that kind of marketing. The Chelsea Hotel, that was years ago. That's romanticized. Oh, that was the day when all the celebrities, they were on the road playing and drugging and sexing. And now they reinvented the Chelsea Hotel recently, and I haven't been there. Actually, I almost went in the other day, but I just couldn't get in because I was busy. Couldn't get there, and so I don't know what they're doing to market it. But that marketing. I would be I would listen to the walls and I say, well, what do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What happened here? And then again, I would hire somebody that's a really good writer, good storyteller, and I would tell that story. But again, too much, very little, right? A little bit. You don't oversaturate the hotel with that story or that branding. You tell the story. Okay, you tell the story in the website. You tell the story in some of the marketing. But the hotel doesn't become that. The history made it that. What you're making it is a guest service hotel. You're making the employees happy to be there. You're making the owner money. That's your job. You kind of just, and this happens all the time in every business, especially hotels, is they take their one-hit wonder and they kill it to death when they're ignoring the sheets not being clean. They're ignoring stains on the carpet. Guests want to go back to what you said with technology. This is what they want. They want the technology of shampooed carpets, the technology of hot water and water pressure. They want the technology of really comfortable beds, and they want the blackouts to work, whether through an iPad or through a pole. They want the blackouts to work. That's what they want. Everything else is everything else.
How would you solve the problem of like room destruction? I mean, there are so many times where I hear stories about these big brutes or these entitled Hollywood types that go into a room and for one reason or another, they destroy it. I remember at the Marc, which is a luxury hotel here in Manhattan,
I know. I know well.
Up in the 70s, right? Like, do you remember that story with Johnny Depp where apparently like he was in a luxury suite at the time he was dating the supermodel Kate Moss, and apparently like he just shredded that room. So what would you do if the idea of room destruction, like how would you solve that problem? Like how do you stop people from behaving this way? We've even had stories right here downtown where celebrities go into rooms, they live there for a long time, and they're not, when the hotel owners go back in, the room doesn't look anything like it should have. There's just so much destruction.
Well, that's why you pre-approve their black card. You make sure that there's money on that card. There's security in those hotels, and I won't talk through the security of that hotel. I know that hotel very well. Actually, my daughter worked there for a time being in the VIP office, and I can tell you a lot of great stories. So the gentleman that ran it up until recently, Manuel, is now running a very beautiful hotel in Washington, D.C. So it's one of my favorite places to hang out and have a drink. They have a high level of security for their guests because the guests that stay there, they're the top of the top of the top. And they pay the top of the top of the top. So there's heavy security. But if somebody, whether it be a king or a celebrity or whatever, destroys a room, you have insurance for a reason and you have their credit card information for a reason. It happens. There's no preventing it from happening. When people don't go to hotels, they go home. When you and I stay in hotels, we're not going to our hotel room. We're going home. Everything we do in a hotel room, we do at our home. We go to the bathroom, we have sex, whatever we do in a hotel, you do at home. So that's their home. We cannot invade their home. So if they decide to destroy their home, we have insurance and we have a credit card. If we go out of our way to make too much security and them feeling not comfortable, that's not a way to run a hotel. When owners come to me on a weekly basis and say, I did this and I did that, I was like, what do you mean? You're tying everything down. You have a credit card. If they break a $50 vase, don't put a $5,000 vase in a $200 hotel room. Okay. Put a $50 vase. If they break it, charge them.
So, okay, last example, just for fun. Let's see how you would solve this problem. The Park Central Hotel really dealt with these ongoing mafia stories. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it became problematic. There was the infamous barbershop incident with the Gambino crime family's boss, Albert Anastasia. He was also the head. He was known to be the head executioner of Murder Inc. He was murdered in 1957 while sitting in the barber's chair during a shootout. That murder, by the way, was never solved. Nobody ever figured out how that happened or who did it. And then before that, the famous Jewish gangster Arnold Rothstein in 1928 was shot and killed while he was playing just cards, his regular card game at the Park Central Hotel. So what would you do to keep crime or criminal element out of the hotels?
Again, you have security. Every guest is treated the same. They're treated with respect. There have been many hotel guests that stayed in my hotel that may have been felons. They may have been to jail, served their time. You don't know. The only thing you can do is have good policies, good procedures, good security, good cameras, and do your best. But you can't give every guest a third degree. You can't see who is in the paper. There's a guy right now in the paper in Philadelphia. He's the Godfather, Skinny Joe Molino. If he came into my hotel, he actually has a podcast. If he came into my hotel, we're going to treat him with respect. We're going to treat him as a guest. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure he has a great stay. If he does anything that's against our policies and procedures, our director of security will follow the proper protocol, whatever that protocol is.
Anthony, you've been tremendous and fun and insightful and emotional, and I appreciate all of it. A tradition of the ending of my show is for me to start a sentence which incorporates the name of the show, Some Future Day, and then I allow for my guest to finish the sentence. Are you game?
I'm game.
All right. So in some future day, hotels will become
everything I want them to become.
Beautiful. You're the man, Anthony. I really appreciate your time today. Is there anything else that you want to add? Is there anything we missed as it relates to the hospitality business? We went pretty wide.
Listen, I've been very fortunate. I don't know how I got all these blessings, but your interview is going to stay as one of my favorite interviews. You are very well prepared, very engaging person, and I enjoyed this more than I can say.
I love you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I know your time is very important, so thank you so much for joining me today. For ongoing insight surrounding these important topics, you can join the conversation on my social media channels, including Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Marc Beckman. And to sign up for my newsletter on Substack, you can find me at marcbeckman.substack.com. To make sure you don't miss a show, be sure to subscribe to Some Future Day across all major platforms worldwide, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Special thanks to New York University for producing Some Future Day, and a big shout out to my producer extraordinaire, John Boomhofer, for being patient and always encouraging me to push through. Thanks a lot, John. Have a great day.